the problem was it was just so much bad information out there. That's why I had to tell him, like, we're not going to keep doing this. And it's not, I always tell Dedric, it's not enough for us to just get by. We were sent here to get ahead. So we couldn't continue to live just paycheck to paycheck.
I would have told my 28-year-old self is invest in mentorship earlier. Invest in mentorship at 28. I think I was 35 when we paid our first mentor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Optimist podcast. I'm your host, Matt Drinkon. And today, for the very first time, I'm excited to come at you here from St. Simons Island, Georgia, in our new home, our new podcast studio. This is the first recording down here. And it's a sincere pleasure to have a family team of entrepreneur, real estate professionals. And I don't know what other businesses they have too, but these guys, you'll know them from shows on A&E, now on Hulu, and they're all over the social media. But this is the team of Miss Krystal and Dedric Polite, Polite. If you haven't heard of them, then you're about to be rocked. And once you go down the rabbit hole for looking at them online, then I'm sure you'll be strangely magnetized by their presence because they've got presence and it's pretty cool. So without any further ado, I welcome to the show Krystal and Dedric Polite. Welcome, team.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And congrats on the new home.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now, they opted to go in blind today. Now, I talked to a lot of guests in the pre-interview and say, would you like to know what the questions are? And they're like, no, we want you to hit us off the cuff. And so here we go. You can choose who answers. Both of you can answer. But the first question, who are Krystal and Dedric Polite?
Great question.
You want to go first or you want me to go first? Ladies first.
Okay. Who is Dedric and Krystal Polite? We are serial entrepreneurs and huge family-oriented individuals, right? So we believe in faith, family, and then financing, right? For us, Dedric and I love being around our children. We have 2 small children. So we go hard, but we also play hard. We are 2 individuals who believe in lifting as we rise. So the further we go, we believe in bringing others with us. We believe in creating generational wealth. So we came from generational poverty. Both of us came from single mothers, multiple children, and we came from generational poverty. So we had to be the first ones in our family to be able to break that cycle. So we have built a foundation on building something that outlives us. Now, our company name is Be Polite. Our slogan is, it costs nothing to be polite, but we teach people to be able to build something that outlives them. And that's what he and I are doing with our family is we're brick by brick, property by property. We are just building something that our children will be able to benefit from one day down the line. So if I could say anything, I would say Dedric and I are who you want to be, but who a lot of people really are and just haven't tapped into it. So we are not twice removed from anyone who's even watching your podcast, who's not. We are those same individuals. It's just we were lucky enough to lock in and really do some grunt work. What would you say?
Hey, you answered it.
Yeah. Well, so having said that, I'm curious because the energy between the 2 of you is fantastic and it's inspiring to me. And someone said to me yesterday that men want to be admired, women want to be adored, and the way that you look at each other, it's inspiring. So I feel a really good chemistry, good energy. So it's very authentic. I'm glad to see that.
Thank
you.
Can you trace us back and tell us what's your origin story? How did the 2 of you actually connect and meet back in the day?
Yeah, how we met. So I'm from a small town in South Carolina, right? She's from a small town in North Carolina. Both our moms are single moms raising kids in the inner city. They both relocated to Boston, Massachusetts in the 80s for better opportunities. We didn't meet until we were both in our late 20s. We both in graduate college, working jobs. And randomly, I went to a random gas station that I never go to one day down the street from my house. She happened to be pulling into the gas station at the same time. I didn't end up pumping gas that day, but I did lay eyes on her. I gave her my business card, I introduced myself. Most beautiful woman I ever met, sparked up a conversation. And, a couple of weeks later, we had a lunch date. that I thought was a date. It was actually an interview, right? Because she grilled me. She absolutely grilled me on our first date. I thought this was a date. We're talking about what's your favorite food, what's your favorite color. She was like, "What's your 3-year plan?" She was like a big 5-year plan. What do you want to do with your life? You know, all the hard questions. She grilled me on our first interview. And instead of being taken aback and being like offended, I was actually like intrigued even more. I'm like, man, this is refreshing. A woman who knows what she wants. She was not about playing any games. And, you know, we've been pretty much inseparable ever since.
Almost.
A few other hiccups in the road along the way, but once you met me, you couldn't get rid of me.
Yeah, it wasn't even a hiccup. It was more so we met. We did have a business date lunch, but I also realized after just meeting him and speaking with him for a few months that he wasn't ready for a commitment. He wasn't ready for a serious relationship yet
At that time,
and I knew that.
I was in my late 20s, living my best life,
Yep.
bachelor, had the cars, had the money, you know, so I wasn't ready to settle down at that moment, but I knew she was the one when I met her.
But I knew he wasn't. And so I told him, go off for a year, live your life, come back in a year. And if you still want to revisit this, then we can. I said, and he was like, wait, what? I said, go off for a year, travel the world, ride your motorcycle, party, sleep with other women, whatever you want to do. Go have fun.
Yeah, my eyes were looking like yours, Matt. I was like, what? Are you kidding me?
That's a bold play, Krystal.
But it was more so because I knew if we would have forced it, if I would have forced him to be where I was at that exact moment in my life, we would have crashed and burned.
Yeah.
So I had to meet him where he was and not where I wanted him to be. And in doing so, we have not been, once he came back in a year, we went to lunch, we had a conversation, and from that point on, we hadn't been apart since then. And he came back. So I tell people like,
the guy.
what if he didn't come back? Then you just be speaking to someone else right now. That's all that would have happened. But I told him what God had in store for me. I knew it was going to be for me, but I also knew I couldn't force him to be where I wanted him to be. I had to take him for where he was at that moment.
Awesome. I love the transparency in our conversation. This is great. It sounds like the way you met sounds very similar to how Julie and I met, my wife. We met at a networking event unintentionally. I stepped on her on accident. I'm 6'7", she's 5'1". I didn't see her. I just stepped on her, and it was an accident. But the second I saw her, I was like, "Oh my God, she's super hot and smart." And she was a leader in the room, and it was cool. I was instantly attracted to her. But at the end, this is where she gives me crap to this day. At the end, I didn't ask for a number. I asked for a business card. And we ended up having 2 bottles of wine that night, and I still asked her for her business card. And, walked her to her place. Didn't give her a kiss goodnight or anything, just walked her to her place. She's like, you didn't even try to make a move or try to even put your hands up and try to kiss me. Right. And I was like, well, yeah, I was well past my late 20s at that time. And I wasn't looking for something, just on the surface. I was looking for something a little bit deeper. And I thought, maybe the way to, because she seemed a little bit different. Maybe I should take a little bit different. And it worked out. And we're
like that.
for 12 years. We got 3 kids and, happy. So
Look
it's
at
cool
that.
to hear your story.
That's awesome.
Okay, guys, I'm going to try to hit you with a question here. It is the signature question of our show. And I'd like you to take a moment, just think about the most challenging obstacles that you've ever overcome in your life. And you can start when you were a child. You can talk about generational poverty, because I'm very interested in how you rose from that, because that alone could be an entire episode. And that may be where we go. But I like to ask you, what are the most challenging things you've ever had to overcome in your life, right? So that's the question. And most people will tell me 1 or 2 things. Some might go with 3 things. But I'd love for you to start back from birth until today and just come up with one or 2 things that have been the biggest challenges in your life you're willing to share today.
Okay. Wow, great question. See, this is why I should have asked for the questions up front. I knew I shouldn't have listened to you and Dedric. I should have got these questions.
I was trying to tell you the question.
Make it real.
Dedric at the very end was like, "Yeah, we're just going to go with it." And yeah.
I know I don't like the prizes. Yes, mine.
Okay. I'll go first. Mine was not knowing my birth father. My birth father from South Carolina, he died when I was 3 years old. And my mom, she had my brother a year and a half after I was born. He had a different father. So she kind of raised me as if that was my father. And I found out when I was 14 that my birth father, who he was, and that he had passed when I was very young. So find that out at 14, as an impressionable age, obviously I was shattered, my confidence. I was just like, man, everything I believed in life, I thought was a lie at that moment. I adopted a victim mentality, right? Even though I was on an upwardly mobile path, I was in private school on a full scholarship, I was now the victim, right? And I carried that with me for many years. And I blamed everyone else, right? And it wasn't until I went to therapy, maybe 15 years later, I went to a therapy course, and it really made me come to grips that, hey, you're holding this in. You're holding this anger towards your mom and people not telling you who your real birth father was. It's just something that happens, right? It's not anyone's fault, but you've been playing a victim. And once I kind of went to therapy and kind of got that catharsis and got that out of me and realized that that does not define me and what I was able to accomplish despite not knowing my birth father, right, was still incredible. I kind of put that in the past and didn't let that hold me back anymore. And I was able to sit down with my mom, have a conversation with her on how I felt about it and really heal our relationship because I've been harboring that with her. So that was probably the toughest thing early in life that I had to go through. But growing through that and overcoming that, right, and that then becoming part of my testimony is one of the things that I overcame that was huge.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That is huge. So I'm trying to put some pieces together. This is the age of 14. You find this out, and it's not until about 15 years later you start to take some type of therapy. And I'm trying to put puzzle pieces together. You and Crystal met when you were in your late 20s. Is this a post Crystal, like after you've met, after the year you might have gone away and come back? Is this something that?
It was shortly before that I kind of came to the realization and yeah,
Wow.
let that hurt go, right? And instead of being a victim, I was like, hey, let me look at this in an optimist point of view, glass half full point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. If I could ask, how long were you in therapy before you had the courage or just developed the mindset to be able to try to talk to mom and start to let go of that victim mentality?
It was probably a couple months, right? And
Wow.
it was a couple months, and it was intense, therapy. And
Yeah.
I realized that I wasn't alone. That everyone, and when you study psychology, everyone has some type of traumatic event happen in their youth before the age of like 14, 15, where it shatters their worldview. So I wasn't alone. I'm like, no, I'm not the only person who's gone through. It's different for everyone,
Yeah.
right? So I kind of realized that helped me let go of that hurt and that pain as well.
I'm so glad we could talk about this because it wasn't too long ago, maybe a decade ago, where there was the stigma attached to the word therapy, especially for men. And just talking about it out loud is something you didn't do, especially on a show. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to admit that I've been in therapy with my wife. I call it marriage coaching because it's helping us to strengthen our relationship and work on our stuff. I feel that this has been like a big unlock, to be able to have a confidential private session to talk about stuff.
Yeah,
Right? So I love that you shared this as the first story. Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
And to do 2 months, 2 months of therapy, and you were able to walk through that
It was
portal.
very intense, intense.
That is amazing. That is amazing, Dedric. Awesome. Well, I'd love to ask the same question to Crystal. Crystal, what might be one of the most challenging things you've had to endure or overcome in your life that you can share with us today?
Great question. I would say it would probably have been in college. I had originally went for because I wanted to be a lawyer. So that's what I was going to school for. And in just I'm going to say my end of my freshman year, I ended up kind of accidentally writing and producing a stage play. Um, and that was from a fashion show that I turned into a stage play and um, did it the end of my freshman year. It went off with such huge reviews that by my sophomore year, I had completely revamped and did a full stage play that I wrote, produced, and directed. Now I'm probably about 19 years old at the time. So of course I didn't have great business acumen, but I partnered with a guy who was very well known. He was a promoter in the area. He also went to the same college as me. I should have known something because he was like 10 years senior, like one of the kids who just like never graduates.
Yeah.
That should have been a red flag to me, but it wasn't. So I ended up partnering with him because the original show that I did was for them. And so we partnered, and then he was like, "Hey, we should take this on tour." And I was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah, we can take it on a college tour." So that's what we ended up starting to do. I wrote, produced, directed the entire stage play, did all the casting. We took it on tour, and we were selling out major universities from Massachusetts all the way down through North Carolina, South Carolina. We did one in LSU. So
Tens of thousands of dollars.
yes. And it wasn't until my brother at the time, who was also in my play, had noticed that my partner was coming. He done got a brand new state of the art truck. Then he came with another BMW.
Whoa.
And he started asking me, like, "Yo, what are you making off these shows?" And I was like, "Well, we're not making much money right now, but only around, a couple $1,000s." He was like, "What?" Now my brother is older than I am. So he was like, "Wait, what?" So he's the one who started putting two and two together and kind of blew the lid off of my partner had been basically telling me our expenses were one amount. And he'll be like, "Hey, well, I'm covering all the costs. Our expenses are this, this, and this. Our expenses are now about 10, 15,000. When in fact, because he was with the organization, we were going on this college tour. Our expenses were all taken care of. So we weren't paying for venues. We weren't paying for marketing. We weren't paying for the DJ. Like none of this were we actually incurring a cost on. And he had popped up with 5 multifamilies in the state
That he purchased.
that he had
Really?
purchased.
Wow.
I mean, these are 3 families. He had popped up with like 5. And it wasn't until my brother was like, "Yo, this dude is robbing you blind." And me and him, it was this huge blow up after one of the shows. And I saw what we brought in, asked him, "Hey, how much did we bring in?" And he was like, "Well, we'll probably split about 4,000." And I lost it at that point because we had brought in closer to about 20,000. And he was like, "Yeah, we'll split 4,000." So after that show, I was so devastated that this is went on. Probably we had already done maybe like 8, 9 universities at this point. I stopped the show immediately. I couldn't nobody reach me by phone, by what do you call that? What were we using? Two-way pagers back then.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we had.
And you heard of Tyler Perry before? Like,
Yeah.
they called her the female Tyler Perry. That's what the write-ups were calling her. And this is in the early 2000s with her play.
And I shut everything down and I went into like hiding at that point. Like, and everybody's trying to contact me, my team, actors, everyone. And I didn't even want to see the light of day at that point. I was just like, "Listen, I need a break from everything and everyone." I transferred colleges. I literally did not want to have anything to do with anyone who was associated with it at that point because I was so just hurt and devastated. I was mad at myself because I was like, I didn't know. And it took me some years in counseling to realize I was 19.
Yeah.
Most 19-year-olds were not doing what I was doing and didn't have that weight on their shoulders. So I had to learn to give myself some grace, but it also made me better and stronger because I've always been an entrepreneur. Since I was 17, I had formed my first company and it was probably done incorrectly, but I did it.
Yeah.
I've always been an entrepreneur. So from that experience really spawned even what Dedric and I have now, because from that point, I was like, I'm not doing any more partnerships. I learned about contracts. I learned about everything. So even within that darkness, it definitely shed some light and brought light to a lot of situations going forward for me.
Wow. So now, retrospectively, are you glad that any of that happened?
Yes, I am.
Why?
I'm glad because I learned a lot about myself in the process, and I learned a lot about mentorship and having someone who's done what you're trying to do or is doing, coaching
Yes.
you, right? So when I met my husband, he was not for paying. He couldn't believe in paying someone to teach him how to do something. He was like, "I can go online. We can go on YouTube
I didn't
and
understand
figure
how
this
you
out."
first met.
Yeah.
What I went through at that point, I learned the value of
If you had a mentor, it could have saved you
exactly.
in that situation.
So I learned how resilient I was and how strong I was. And I knew I was always a strong individual, but at that moment, that was my weakest. So I also learned how failure doesn't mean final. And I might have failed at one aspect, but it's helped me now to go on to something bigger and better. That was for a moment and a season. That season and that moment had passed. So I wasn't going to make that my final, that kind of final version of who I was in anybody's eyes. So from that point, and Dedric has met quite a few people who were in my plays, and they'll be like, yo, that was the best time of my life.
Wait, I met the guy at a wedding.
Yeah.
So they had a wedding recently last year in Rhode Island, and the guy who stole the money was there. And, they shook hands and like gave records. So I'm like, you are a big person, because I would have had a little fisticuffs going on with her. But no, she's over it now.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. And I believe for our listeners out there, I think that Krystal just demonstrated, the thinking of an eternal optimist, of someone who will take the challenges and learn from them. And Dedric, same in his story, a victim at first, then he worked on the game, he learned from it. And I believe that is what I would determine as an eternal optimist.
Absolutely.
Someone who can take all the hard stuff and still turn it into something positive they can use to their advantage and learn from it. So kudos. And to build on that, I'm glad you mentioned the epilogue here. You've ran to the guy at a wedding. And when I was in therapy and in coaching, and I had some anger directed towards a couple of very specific people that I felt to take advantage of me in my life. And when I learned to let go of that anger, I feel that it opened a new page.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw that person again, I didn't have any animosity towards them or any hate towards them in my heart. I did at the moment of impact when things happened and popped off, but now not anymore. So I think that's another example of eternal optimism, is learning to let go of the things that have a grip on our heart and our brain that just don't serve us.
And Matt, one thing I want to add is that through what she went through, that gave her the confidence to coach me. Because I remember early in our relationship, I got fired from a job, and I had never been fired before, and I had a mortgage and I had a car note, and I was in the dumps. I was depressed, moping around. And now with her retelling that story, that's where she got the power and the inspiration to pick me back up and be like, look, you got fired, but that failure is not final. Like, I just saw it with her retelling the story. Like, man, that's how you empowered me when I was in the dumps, when I got fired from my job.
Wow. Well, I want to say behind every strong man is a stronger woman. At least I would say it's true for me. So thank you for where we've come so far, team. I'd love to move us forward into just talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial ventures together. You've shared some of the challenging things growing up in that stage of life. Can you take us to the kind of beginning of the Polite team and what got you to where you're at now in your business together?
Yeah.
Yep. So our first business venture together was actually due to Dedric getting fired.
Nice. Hard stuff turning into the brilliance. I love it. I mean, this couldn't be a better script. Thank you.
Yes. He once he got fired, and I got tired of seeing him mope around. I was like, look, we not here for this. This is, you bigger than this. And I told him to go out and take some time, clear your head, and figure out now what it's time for you to do. And I had to let him know that failure doesn't mean final. Fired doesn't mean final. And that now is just your time to take this opportunity to figure out now, what does God really have in store for you? What is meant for you to do? This job was not it. I said, take your time, ride your motorcycle, clear your head, and now think of your next move, your next master plan.
You literally spoke life into me.
Yes.
I was like depressed.
Yeah.
I told him the job lost you. You didn't lose that job. So now is your time. I said, don't worry about your bills. Don't worry about your mortgage, car notes, or any of that. I'll hold you down. Just go out there and now figure out what it is that you were truly meant to do. And that's what he did. He went out. Within a week, he came to me and he was like, hey, I found this website this business called Airbnb that I think we could do at your apartment where we rent it out. A friend of mine rents his out, I think it was, while he goes out of town. I think we can rent your apartment out while you're over here with me.
And this is in 2012 when Airbnb had just came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, he was like, oh, but wait, your brother's there. I said he was. Hold on one second.
And keep in mind, we just started dating, so she was always over at my house. So her house, she couldn't get enough of me. So her house was vacant. It was vacant most of the time. And I'm like, we can make some money on your apartment by renting it out.
Okay.
And my brother had been staying there because I was over at Dedric's house, but he wasn't paying rent or anything of that nature. So he's crashing there every day.
He was couch crashing.
And so I called him and I was like, hey, you got 2 weeks and then I'm going to need you to be out. I'm subleasing my apartment. Oh, no. I can start paying some rent and stuff. I said, no, I'm sorry. It's too late. You got 2 weeks though. 2 weeks he was out. I said, okay, let's go. What we doing now? I started reading up on it. I said, okay, I'll go ahead. We'll start looking for furniture. We just started going through the motions. Now, Airbnb was not what it is today. So there were no courses out really on it at all. You had to really learn by looking at other people's listings and stuff. So that's what we were doing, looking at what needs to be in there. We actually ended up doing my apartment. Now it's called arbitrage. Back then it was called illegal.
Because we didn't own the property. We didn't have permission from the landlord to sublease. So we subleased it for like 4 or 5 months. And we made close to $40,000. We were making a lot of cash. Her mom was getting remarried down in South Carolina. We were actually able to pay for her mom's wedding in cash. And this is our first business venture we have. And then the landlord got wind that we were subleasing, took us to court, and she got evicted from her apartment.
Yeah, but they didn't have to do all that because we had already planned on moving to North Carolina.
Moving out of state.
We had already found a place in North Carolina, so we were going to be closing up shop anyway. So we ended up moving out. And this is 2 months into dating. So when I tell people that, I like to mention that we weren't 2 years into a relationship. We were 2 months into knowing each other.
And for you to trust with what you went through with that other partner. She said the next person I partner with is going to be my husband, right?
Yep.
Because she didn't trust me at this point. So to be able to have that trust at that point was huge as well.
And for him to understand that I believed in him. Right. He didn't know anything about it, but we were going to figure it out together. I like to tell people I'm the type who will jump and grow wings on the way down. That's my mentality. So for me and him coming together, it's always electric and magnetic because we bring such different energies to whatever we're doing. He's the integrator. I am the visionary. And we kind of just come together and we complement each other and get it done. So Airbnb was our very first venture. He's the one who always wanted to get into real estate. That was his dream, his passion, his love. I got tired of hearing about it.
I was an entrepreneur when we first met. Man, I'm more conservative. So growing up poor, I always heard you need a lot of money to get into real estate. You need a great credit. Right. And I was afraid. I was like, I grew up on Section 8, right? I don't want to go back to being broke. So what if I do try real estate and fail? I don't want to lose my shirt. So I'd go to the seminars. I had all the CDs and the trainings, but I would never take the leap and take action until I met her. She's a total like ultimate optimist, right? And she was like, what are you doing? Like, you need to do something with all this information that you've gathered instead of just sitting on it. So she kind of called me to the carpet multiple times, and I was like, all right, well, let's do it. Let's start figuring this thing out.
Yeah. And that was over 13 years ago back in 2012. So bring us forward. What are some of the key milestones in this entrepreneurial journey together, team?
Yeah, so we moved to North Carolina. Her mom retired and decided to move back home to North Carolina. She's super close with her mom. So she was like, hey, I'm moving to North Carolina. And I was like, well, you're not leaving me here in Boston. We're moving to North Carolina. And I would give her our first date. She said, hey, how tired are you to staying in Boston? I said, I'm not tied down here. So she was like, well, anyone who's with me has to be willing to uproot and move. I said, hey, where are we going? Right. So it was North Carolina.
So you see how it was a surprise, right?
She set the great lady.
I like that. You see some frame. I like it. Plant the seed, baby.
It's so important. Like, I wasn't going to ask him what's your favorite food because I had no intentions on cooking it. I didn't ask.
She's an amazing cook now.
Right. But I didn't ask him, oh, what's your favorite drink when y'all go out to the club? I didn't care about that because he wasn't going to the club with me. It was stuff that I knew was super important. It was going to come back up quicker than he thought. What's your credit score? That came up on the first date, right? Why? Because I knew my next partner was going to be my husband. So that's why all of that was important.
Absolutely. So we moved to North Carolina. I found a job in quick order doing sales. She was working remote. We did that for a couple of years, but we always were looking for outside sources of income.
Yep.
Because neither one of us were like settled with corporate, right? We're like, we can't do this for 20, 30 years. We can't build wealth. We can't build a family. Like we just don't want to. Now, some people love their jobs, but we weren't there, right? So we had multiple side hustles from network marketing to e-commerce stores to selling garments, all type of stuff that we tried and failed at, right? We probably failed at a dozen businesses before we struck success with real estate, right? And we got into real estate in 2016, 2017. That's when we started trying to figure it out after me trying to figure it out myself through YouTube University and podcasts. That didn't work, right? We need to hire a mentor. And she said during those years, we need a mentor. We need to pay someone to show us the way and show us the blueprint and shorten our learning curve. And when we made that first investment in a mentor, that's what changed everything for us.
Nice. Take us up to that point. Because I remember the first time I hired a coach or a mentor, and I was against it. People that were older and more successful than me were saying, don't try to do it all yourself.
Yep.
Pay someone to help. I was stubborn to that point.
Here.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do it, and finally did it and blew up after.
Absolutely.
So take us to that moment of mentor in the next 1 to 3 years after you started to get this mentorship. What happened?
So we had paid our first mentor, it was about $5,000 to teach us flipping because we thought that's what we wanted to do. And then she said how much capital we needed for flipping. We said, okay, so we can't flip right now. And she said, no, you guys need to get into something that's called wholesaling.
Okay.
And she told us about wholesaling. That way you can build up your capital and then you flipping. So we said, okay. So she said, hey, here's a boot camp, a marketing boot camp that you can go to. It's in St. Louis. And then you can learn all about wholesaling, all the different exit strategies. We said, okay. The great thing about her was we went back to our lives after that. I went back to our lives and she kept following up. Did you sign up? Did you sign up? Did you sign up? Did you sign up? And we finally was like, let's just go ahead and sign up. Forget it. Like she's asking, she's saying it for a reason. Let's just go ahead and sign up. So we signed up, ended up flying out to St. Louis. He and I, we had 2 small kids, brought his mom along so she could watch the kids while we were up in the conference. I'm still breastfeeding at the time. So I'm running from the conference to the hotel room, back up to the conference.
Had 9 to 5 jobs.
Yep, 9 to 5, taking PTO time to go to the conference because these conferences are built around full-time investors. So these are people who this is what they do all day. So they can go to these conferences Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and not have to worry about taking time off. So we ended up going and it changed everything for us. At the end of the conference, like most conferences, they do a call to action, a pitch, and it was for a mastermind. And first thing he said was, in the back of the room, because they're always in the back of the room. In the back of the room, if you are interested in this mentorship, it will be. He gave out all the information on what it offers, and he said $16,000. Well, at that point, Dedric tuned out.
That's when my brain shut down.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have $16,000. Even if we did, that's a huge investment. So I'm like, nah, $16,000.
At that point, you lost Dedric.
She was kicking me under the table like, we need to do this.
Still listening. And I'm like, okay. So when he stopped, I looked at Dedric like, is something wrong with your feet?
Are you crazy? So we're like arguing in the crowd.
Like,
$16,000. She's like, we need to do this.
He's like,
and I knew we needed to do it. I knew it. I was just afraid of what if it doesn't work? What if we lose our money? But what I was afraid of is like, all right, if I invest this, I'm going to have to do it now. I'm not going to put 16 grand that I don't have into something and not. So we didn't have the money in our account. We had a business credit card with about 20 grand on it. So we plunked down a business credit card. We used it. We swiped it for that 16,000. And that was the burning the ships moment for me. I was like, okay, I can't play around with this. I got to take this serious now because I've invested $16,000 into this program, right? We joined the mastermind. We were the lowest on the totem pole. Once a quarter, we fly out to St. Louis, and all the other investors were 7-figure earners, multiple 7 figures. They would talk, get up there on the hot seat. Yeah, I bought 12 rentals this quarter. I did 5 flips and I made $282 million this quarter. And we're trying, but we've got zero.
Like,
When we for lack of trying. So literally 2 straight quarters we went out there, no closed deals. And Krystal, her ego, she was like, look, we're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to keep coming out to these masterminds without having any results, not having moved the needle. So she was like, we're not going back until we can close some deals. So the next quarter, we actually did the mastermind through Zoom. We didn't fly out there because we hadn't closed any deals, right? We're trying and trying and trying. But then that following quarter, we finally had our breakthrough. We closed our first wholesale deal. We made 11 grand. Our second wholesale deal, we made 5,000. And our third wholesale deal, we made 105,000 virtually wholesaling. So now we're in the game, right?
Yeah.
Now, confidence. Now we got momentum. Quickly after that, we bought like 3 or 4 quadplexes, bought a couple of single families. So now we're actual landlords, right? And we're in the game. And literally since then, we haven't looked back.
yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And there were so many chances for you to get off the train. So many chances that you could have stopped so many times. Oh, how did you keep going? How did you just keep doing it? Because I've been in those calls. I've been in those masterminds where I was the person who hadn't done much yet and was feeling doubt. How did you keep going?
Because not going was not an option. So for me, I'm an entrepreneur. So me working a 9 to 5 has always been temporary. Like, so it was never an option. And I told Dedric, first date, I will work for myself. I must have my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. Are you one? He said, yes, I am. Great. Tell me about some of your entrepreneurial endeavors. I had to make sure that either he was an entrepreneur or he understood the mind of an entrepreneur, because either way, they know that it's going to get tough. It can get tough. And it takes a strong person to also be able to deal with an entrepreneur and understand the mindset of an entrepreneur. So for us, it was never an option for it not to hit.
Like, it's got to work or it's got to work.
It's got to work or it's got to work. It's just a matter of, my God, how long is it going to take for it to work? So it took us over a year to really close our first deal. Okay. But at that point, it was more so, okay, we got to pivot. If this ain't working, we got to pivot. The problem was it was just so much bad information out there. That's why I had to tell him, like, we're not going to keep doing this. Because we going to, I done went to the Marriott Hotel thinking that Christina and Tariq was going to show up.
At one of those seminars.
At one of the seminars.
I knew better. I was like, they're not coming there. They're going to have some paid speaker pitching you on some type of program.
That I done heard on the radio. I done told him they're going to be here. He was like, well, you go and then you let me know how it is. And if they show up, and then I'll show up. It done got about 1 o'clock, went to lunchtime. I was like, they ain't even here. And the guy said that it's her team. Their team is going to be here. He said, I'd already told you that. So I didn't even like that feeling at that point. Then we done went to seminars where they're like, hey, here, get this credit card. And then we're going to partner with you on the credit card. And we're going to buy some houses with your credit. And then we're going to help you flip those houses. And then we'll give you a percentage. Your 30%, we'll take 70% because we're managing everything. We're like, what? It was just so much misinformation and bad information. To me, I said, we have to get a coach. We have to get a mentor. We got to get around people who are really doing this at a high level. So for me, it's either going to work or it's going to work. That was it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm inspired right now. This is such a great story because if you go back to the beginning, dear listener, their challenges, they came from generational poverty. And you don't hear this story very often unless you hear a really gritty, resilient, I'm going to stick with it, and through heaven, hell, through it all, I'm going to make it happen. And you just heard the blueprint for that today. I hope our audience is taking note here that this wasn't handed to them.
Absolutely.
And it's not, I always tell Dedric, it's not enough for us to just get by. We were sent here to get ahead. So we couldn't continue to live just paycheck to paycheck.
If you could go back in time right now, because I'm guessing you're probably in your 30s at some point. If you can go back in time.
Thank you, Matt. That's generous of you.
Okay. Well, if you can go back in time and talk to your 28-year-old self, what advice might you give yourself? encouragement, words of wisdom, if you can go back and tell yourself some things now that you've made it to where you've made it so far? Is there anything you might go and tell yourself?
Yeah, I would have told my 28-year-old self is invest in mentorship earlier. Invest in mentorship at 28. I think I was 35 when we paid our first mentor. That's the cheat code, is having a coach that you can call that has your back, that's been where you're trying to go, right? And we've had multiple mentors over the year. It depends on the expertise we're trying to learn. But that is the cheat code to shortening your learning curve.
Amen. Amen.
For me, I think it would be always to start sooner. So for me, if I would have known then what I know now, and been in the right rooms to learn it, it would have been a game changer for us, right? So I look at young people now who come up to us that are 18 or 19. They're like, hey, I'm going to get into real estate when I get older. And we're like, no, you can get into that now. You don't need to wait, which is why we've helped so many 18, 19, 20-year-olds get into real estate, and it changes the whole trajectory of your family tree. Because once you learn it, it's like riding a bike. Once you learn it, you know it. So I always say, if you could just start sooner, right? Get into the right rooms at a young age. And that's critical because most of us, child, at 20, I was a little different. But I would say in my mid 20s, I had shut everything down about 24, 25. And at that point, it was for me, it was getting into the right rooms at that point. So I think if we can get our young people into the right rooms at a younger age, it could change their life.
Awesome. Team, this has been inspiring to hear your story. And where can our listeners go to find out more about you and to learn with you and connect with you?
Yeah, your listeners can go to politewealthportal.com. So our last name, Polite Wealth Portal. Reason we created that is because we truly believe the information we share, someone implements it. It is a portal to building wealth for themselves and their family. We do free trainings once a month. We'll do a free 90-minute training for anyone who's interested in getting into real estate investing, even if you don't have a lot of cash, or even if you have bad or no credit. We have people who've taken off from those trainings. We do accelerated classes once a month, where we do a 4-week, one night a week for 4 weeks, where we have people come out of that closing deals, buying their first property. And then we also have one-on-one mentorship as well, which is by application. So if someone applies and they're a good fit, they could be accepted into our one-on-one mentorship program.
And if you want to just learn about Dedric and I and everything that we do, who we are, our social media channels, you can go to dedricandkrystal.com, and it'll have all the information on us, our family, our TV show, which you can check out on Hulu or A&E.
Yeah, I would say watch the show too. If you haven't seen the show, it's called 50/50 Flip. And the whole idea is we flip houses in 50 days or less, spending $50K or less in renovation costs. Check it out. All the stuff that we've learned is encompassed in that show and that we teach other people. And people who watch it are like, you know what? This is attainable for the average person. It's not $1 million homes we're flipping. Anyone's like, hey, I can get together 50,000 to do my first flip.
And then we also teach you how to get together, how we got it together, right? How we secured the funding for deals. We are actually teaching that. So we're some of the first time people are hearing about private investors or hard money and using the business funding, business credit. They're hearing about it on our TV show and realizing like, oh, I can use that. I can do that. So we are very big on when we got the TV show, we said, listen, we're not going to be the millionth flipping show because we're not flippers. The first time we ever flipped this show, I flipped a house on the TV show. So
we had never flipped before the TV show.
We never flipped the house before.
So what we were doing is we were documenting what we were doing on social media. So we would buy properties. Typically, we get them on creative financing, so little to no money down, and we'd renovate them. But those are all buy and holds, rental houses. We weren't selling them, but we renovate them to a flip level of quality. Okay. So the producers who found us through social media thought we were flipping all these houses. And we're like, no, we don't sell, especially not apartment buildings. We keep those for long-term cash flow and wealth. And they're like, all right, well, we don't care. We just want to document what you guys do. Whatever you guys are doing is working. We just want to document that. And the fact that A&E films documentary style, that's what we like. We're like, as long as we can be ourselves and you're documenting us, we're not going to be Hollywood or people that we're not, we're willing to do the show.
Nice. What an inspiring story. Sincerely. This has been awesome. Team, yeah, I'm almost speechless. That's hard to be. Just to hear the story. Because, my origin story is it's got some similarities a generation ago with the generational poverty in a different lens. Just to hear it and just to see it, it's inspiring. So I hope our listeners, if you listen on Spotify or on Apple, that's great. I'd encourage you to go and get a look at the Polites. Go to our YouTube channel and check out what they're doing because this has been inspiring. Just to see their chemistry is inspiring for one. But I, for one, am going to go watch 50-50 Flip today. I'm excited to go watch this. So this is one thing. Team, I'm going to finish up today with a couple of lightning round questions before we call it a wrap.
Okay.
And you can both answer, or one of you can answer. In fact, I'd love to hear from both of you on these. So let's go with the first question. I've got three of them. The first question is: if you are a reader, what might be 1 to 3 books that have had an impact in your life that you might recommend?
2 books. One is Traction by Entrepreneurial Operating System. So it teaches you how to determine whether you're a visionary, you're an integrator, and it gives you a framework for operating as a business owner, even if you've never done it before. That's one. Number 2 is Never Split the Difference, written by a former, I'm sure you nod your head, former FBI negotiator. That is the ultimate book on negotiations. And literally, I read it once a year. And what I've picked up from that book has literally made me millions of dollars in business from the negotiation strategies learned in that book. So those are 2 books I would recommend.
Mine definitely one that Dedric actually made me read that I really wasn't interested in reading was Traction. Definitely helped us in our business. And what's another one?
Typically, I'm her reader, so she'll make me read the book, and then I'm like,
I'll say
I'll have to download the AI summary to her. So
I'll say give me the cliff notes. But I would definitely say Traction is one. And then mine, I'm more of a history buff. So a lot of the books that I read are books on history.
Okay, great. And I'm so glad to hear you say those first 2 books. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got Traction. I've got about 500 books here in my office, but I only put a few of them out, and Traction is 5th on the list.
there you go.
Right over here, because I like that page 34 and 35 when it has the 8 questions. I've got my own VTO filled out, so I love Traction and Never Split the Difference. Also, I watched the YouTube on Chris Voss, super cool. So,
Yes.
and the book is back there somewhere. So awesome to hear those things. How about music? Is there, if you're a music person, then is there a certain song or genre or artist that just fills up your bucket and inspires you?
Oh yeah, we both are huge music lovers. Dedric, whose is yours?
Mine is 90s R&B.
I was about to say,
I'm a 80s baby. I grew up in Boston where New Edition is from, so I'm a huge New Edition fan. So
Yeah.
anything 90s R&B, I can rock out to. But I'm just a lover of, especially live music. I love.
Yep, I would definitely say I'm the same for Dedric. 80s baby, 90s is huge for me. I still really only listen to 90s, early 2000s music. So I mean, huge 90s R&B and hip hop. So 90s rap is everything. I'm still big on the DMXs, the Jay-Z's, the Tupac, Biggie. So yeah, we are huge 90s fans.
Okay, you guys are younger than me then. I have to try to figure out your ages because I was going to say, if you ask me my favorite rap, it's Kool Moe Dee. So that's like the original rapper to me. Yeah, oh yeah.
That's
Yeah, Rakim. Come on now. I know what you're talking about.
But when you started to speak there for a second, Dedric, I was like, did he just say Keith Sweat? Did he just say Boys?
Hey, listen, we saw
that's what I'm talking
Sweat live in Durham 3-4 years ago. It was
absolutely.
When I played golf at I think it was Sugarloaf, TPC at Sugarloaf down there, and saw Keith Sweat's house next to John Smoltz's house. It was like a giant, amazing mansion that had this like circular dome on top, like the Taj Mahal. It was like the most baller house out there was Keith Sweat's house.
paid off for him.
Yeah, awesome. I'm singing in my mind right now a little bit of Boys to Men. So let's go with the last question. And you're on the Eternal Optimist podcast. What might the phrase eternal optimist mean to each of you?
I mean, to me, it's a way of life. It's a way of being. I think if you want to be successful in this life and even beyond this life, you have to be an optimist, right? You have to be a victor and not a victim. So that's the way I live my life. So I love that title of the show, The Eternal Optimist.
And I would say the eternal optimist is someone who understands that you either quit or you keep going. Both of them are going to hurt, period.